Okay. We've got everybody here. I will call to order the regular meeting of the Brattleboro Housing Partnerships for Monday, June 27th at 4:30 p.m., even though it says 4:29 here. First order of business is to review the minutes from May 23rd, 2022. Any corrections, additions?
No, I move they be accepted.
Q, do I have second?
Second.
I'll second that.
What? Byron and, okay. All those in favor of accepting the minutes, please say aye and raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. And resident and citizen participate and community participation, sometimes citizen too. Other than the barking dog that I heard, are there any people who are here as resident and citizen participation? Then we can move on to COVID-19 update.
We are continuing the same protocols that we had for the last few months, which are we are continuing to mask in the presence of residents in meetings. We are no longer requiring masking in common areas of community members and residents. We have started programming, and we have started to offer food when we have programmings, if applicable. So we have limited restrictions, but primarily they're for staff to wear masks when in the presence of other residents, either in their apartments or in office spaces.
That's good news. Beginning to return, not to normal, but to cautious.
Absolutely. And we continue to, when we hear of, if we hear of multiple outbreaks at a specific property site, then we do notify that particular site of that notification.
Has there been any sites where there have been more than 2 or 3?
Only we recently received notification from Moore Court, our family site, and we did notify residents.
Okay. Property review and property managers report, which is yellow. I know that Courtney is involved in onboarding new board members, no, not board members, new staff. So was this pulled together by Jen Short or Estelle Richard?
It was pulled together by them both. Courtney is helping with onboarding, but so is Lorelei. So Courtney has been part of our, she has been really putting a lot of time and energy into some of our legal cases. We have a few legal cases right now. We have a few evictions in legal for cause, and we have started a legal eviction for non-payment. And that has that went to court today, and we were able to make an agreement, temporary agreement for right now.
Okay.
So that will be our first legal case for non-payment since VRAP started.
And was this someone who did not apply for the funds available through the state?
I will say they did apply. They received all the funds that they were allowed and additional funds. There were other stipulations that they didn't complete yearly paperwork, didn't let us know when income changes happened, other related items that contributed to the case.
Okay.
So, but we are working to try to make some sort of an agreement, hopefully, but that is our first case, and then we have several cases that are in legal for cause.
Okay. Questions from commissioners?
Are the like at Ledgewood in Moore Court and all, the people who have applied for help, are these low the 40% and 59% because it hasn't been applied yet, or because they're just behind?
Some of it, when you're looking at what we do have some big debts at those property sites. So they will offset that total by a lot, because we look at what we should be taking in monthly. And so if somebody owes a big debt, then it will really skew the number. So it may only be 1 or 2 households, but they owe a substantial amount of money.
Sure.
It's either that they have not applied for VRAP at all, or they have exhausted the VRAP and are past the point of being able to apply again.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so some of the deficits are rather significant on that listing.
Yeah, and they are limited to only a few households. You know, when we look at the overall household, when we get to the budget in a little bit, we'll talk a little bit about how the salary increases really it impacts our rent collection of what we receive for rent, because we receive more if people's income goes up. And so we can talk a little bit about that more, but you'll see at our year end that we actually came in above budget for rent collection.
Okay. The next one is the Pink Wellness and Services Monthly Report. And this is Lorelei.
I'm impressed with what they're doing.
Mhm. The programming in collaboration with other agencies, including UVM Extension, Winston Prouty Center, Art in the Neighborhood, and New England Circus Arts.
Yeah.
So that has a lot going on.
That's right. That's right. She's doing a great job.
I think Byron has a question.
What about that? Hello?
You asked that again, Byron?
I just wanted to say I'm glad the expansion of our work in Bellows Falls is progressing. And whether we have been in touch with Parks Place.
We do, I think we did, I think Lorelei did reach out to Parks Place. We are working with the Canal House right now as the housing provider and with the property manager there. And she is in the process of connecting to us to different resources in that community. But I know Parks Place is on the list.
Good.
Other comments, questions? And look at the SASH Flash.
I will add one thing, that we have the new education and employment coordinator started today, Mark Ottesi. He is our newest employee to be onboarded. We're very excited to have him.
That's wonderful.
It is wonderful. It's been a long time, and he seems great. He comes from the Greenfield area. He has a strong background working with families and around job coaching, and he is just so excited to be here. So we're really happy to have him.
That's wonderful.
That's wonderful. Absolutely.
Great news. A lot of hard work on the team's part. I have never experienced such a hard time hiring ever. And so they have worked just really tirelessly to get people hired. And we're continuing. We have a lot of second interviews going on right now for maintenance, as well as our office staff. It has been so challenging. It's unbelievable.
How did our new hire come to us?
We had placed an ad in Indeed, and he responded to that ad. That's how we found him. And that's how we're getting a lot of people, although some of our maintenance positions, we're finding other ways of getting them. Just we're getting stickers to put our vans, like magnets. We're putting lots of signs up around town at our property sites that we're hiring. And the newspaper, we're finding that depending on the job, people look in different places.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Well, I'm glad that we're using those places successfully.
And it's been really helpful having Lorelei spend the majority of her time focused on that since she's been on leave. And we really wanted her to focus on something that wasn't super stressful as she transitioned back. And so this has been a great opportunity for her to just really focus on this.
Wonderful.
And to have one person doing that and scheduling, it makes a big difference. So it's been great.
So it's also taken a little bit off your plate.
Absolutely. A huge amount taken off my plate.
Right.
Yeah. We're glad to have her back.
I know, me too.
And SASH Flash, as usual, is very attractive with the explanation of Juneteenth, which I was delighted to see.
Yes.
I think the recipe on the back looks pretty good too.
Yes, it does. Strawberry lemon blondie.
Yes. Oh. I thought the cataract awareness description was excellent.
Mm. I'm gonna miss those. Maybe you can email me those, Christine.
Sounds good, Donna.
And the Housing Choice Voucher Program, this time David's purple.
I noticed, now if I can, the new fair market rents. Oh, where did Christine go? Oh, there you are.
Okay.
You were on one side of my screen and then suddenly you were on the other. New fair market rents for 2023. Now that's an annual thing, right?
It is an annual thing. And I don't know if you remember, but last year in the fall, you voted and we raised them considerably up into above the HUD fair market rent. I think it was 10% above the fair market rent. And David was saying in this letter, we've been speaking about this, that we're hoping that the HUD will allow an even further increase. I'm meeting with HUD on Wednesday with other state housing providers to really press that these numbers need to be increased because we just cannot keep up with the rents in town. And so that will be something that will come across the board's agenda in the early fall to vote on whether or not to increase those. And we'll have to wait to see what HUD gives us for the fair market rents. I
think it would be helpful just to detail how the setting the fair market rents works with our clients.
How HUD sets the rates?
Well, how we or HUD set the rates, but what I understand, it's not what we charge, but what we subsidize, and renters then pay the remainder of that.
Right. So it should be. So there are only. So renters are. Yes, you're right. So renters need to pay. So they pay 30% of their income towards their rent. And the rental units should be within the fair market rent. If they're too expensive and they are too high, we can't approve that. We can't approve for that apartment. They are allowed to go up a certain percentage, though, of what the 30% is. And I don't have that right in front of me. David would be the person. I believe it's 45%. But they can't go much harder. They can't go higher than that. So, and that needs to include utilities. So it can be really challenging for people to find apartments that are affordable in our community. Our hope is that HUD will look, so we don't have any control over what the numbers are that HUD gives us. They have a system for figuring out what the fair market rent should be in our area. However, we can talk to them and say that this is what we're seeing, these increases, and we can do some of the legwork to provide them with some of the information that we're receiving and to make recommendations about the increase. And that's what we'll do.
Good.
Christine? Excuse me.
Byron?
Have we been working maybe with the Vermont Affordable Housing Coalition on responses to HUD?
We do work with the Vermont Affordable Housing Coalition for sure, and so does the Vermont State Housing Authority. They are by far the ones who I think have the strongest voice. They have the most data because they have Section 8 programs throughout the state. And so we do meet with them all, we do meet with them often. So we're all on the same page to be providing this information.
But on this particular issue, they've always been very active with HUD.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Liz, did you have a comment? Question?
Yeah, I know that rents, I know I have friends who are private renters in Brattleboro. Is there somewhere where somebody could say is how much the regular Brattleboro renters are, the rise in cost? Is it documented somewhere so that, when we ask for 10% more, the private renters are doing that or more? I mean, how do we relate this to what's going on?
So there
publicly?
isn't a registry in the state of Vermont for people who rent their apartments. They tried to pass legislation this last year, and it didn't pass for a rental registry. That data would have really helped us. We can certainly reach out to the town and get data. What we're using right now is the most recent town housing assessment report, and we'll be sharing that with HUD as well.
Okay.
But, we can share just our information of what the landlords that we work with through the Section 8 program what they have changed their rents to. That's the data that we're accumulating right now.
Okay. And
Did that answer your question, Liz? I don't know if that.
It did.
Okay.
It did. Yeah, absolutely.
And now talking about rents and finances, we have the financial review, which is the end of fiscal year 21-22 comparable, May 2022 comparable, check listing and check signing assignments. So let's look at the 21-22 comparable.
Great. So that will be the first, that should be the first one you have on top. There's two that look almost identical. So you'll see in the little letters right on the third line, it says 2022. So this is the end of the fiscal year.
Mhm.
There's some pretty interesting information. So just to give you a little bit of information, we did come out ahead $145,000 over budget. We came out ahead of our budget of $145,000, which is great, and we haven't tapped any of our reserves yet. So this is a little twofold. So part of it is that we are planning some big projects over the next year. We're in the process of completing capital needs assessments and also finishing some work with RAD. And so we are really trying to keep increase our reserves as much as possible right now. So we've been really mindful of that. So we're in good shape there. If you look at the first line, the tenant rental income, this is higher than budgeted because people went back to work. So the rental the amount that people paid for rent really went up here, and you can see that. So that was above what we had estimated. Another line to think about would be in the middle under routine expenses, office expenses. Our office expenses were really high, and that's because we had to build a couple of additional office spaces due to COVID. We built 4 office spaces, which cost a lot, and we had to buy new equipment and new things. We also are preparing for new employees. We have 2 new programs starting. And so we sort of pre-bought a lot of the items that will be needed. So hopefully this number, first of all, will be for things that we've already purchased, so we won't need to purchase them again. Also, we should be getting additional funding for these purchases with the next fiscal year. And so we might see this number really, we're going to see a big decrease, but also it will offset that. So that's just one other number to be aware of.
Were the offices built in Melrose?
They were built in Melrose, yeah. And that was really because a lot of people shared office spaces before COVID. And then once COVID hit, we really realized that for sustainability, we just needed to move people into different spaces. So it was a tough call because, you know, we don't know what we'll be doing with this property, but I think for at least the time being, we will be here for a little while. So we really need the office spaces in order to do that. Other than that, you'll see that our salaries came under budget for both maintenance and our administrative salaries. This was really because we had a few vacancies. We stayed right on target in terms of overtime and pay rates, but we were down. We have definitely been down a few positions. Other than that, if you go further in, there are page numbers on the bottom of the page. We are in, if you go to page 12, the SASH program is in really good shape. We're continuing to reassess that program as we look for new people coming in. So that program is in excellent shape, considering we've had 2 full-time employees the whole time and a new contracted nurse. The other page to look at will be the Section 8 funding. On page 8. So with this, it looks a little off because it really looks like we have a lot of money sitting on the table being underutilized. This is kind of 2 parts. So the first part is that we have some people looking for vouchers in the community and are not finding apartments. So right now, I think David said in his note that he had 15 people looking for apartments. The other part of this is a little misleading, is that we were holding some of our Section 8 vouchers for our project-based vouchers at RCC, and they didn't become utilized until the fall. And so this money will have a higher utilization next year. However, for the new board members, and for those remaining on the board, this will be an area that we will be needing to really review next year to figure out if we wanted to restructure our Section 8 program in any way, potentially having different preferences. Vermont State Housing has recently created a preference for people who are already housed, meaning that they live in the community, they have an apartment, but they don't have a Section 8 voucher, but they are a low income, that they would be prioritized so that voucher would go to somebody specifically who is already housed. That would be that's something that we would need to think about in the future. There's consequences to that, because then people who are without housing would not be the priority, which is what we have always traditionally wanted, to house people who are not housed. So just something to think about. Nothing's happening today, but when we start to see what we have for unutilized funds, I think the board will need to come up with some sort of a direction as to where we want to go to make sure that we're utilizing these funds. If we show that we don't utilize these funds over some time, HUD could redact some of the funding and we would get less funding. So we want to avoid that.
Can
Byron?
just a comment on go back to the first page for a second. There's like a less than 2% difference between budgeted and actual expenses for the past year. Is either exquisite budgeting or exquisite cost management, or both, or exquisite fudging of the books. And the new year so far looks equally good.
Yeah, we have been really keeping an eye on this. It's not easy because, every day is different. So it's hard to get an exact number for everything, but I think that we have been really doing a great job of keeping a strong eye on the budget. And I think that our new accounting system seems to be working really well to have all the different levels of checks and balances throughout the organization. So we have been really keeping an eye on it. And I think it's paying off for sure, especially right now because everything is so ambiguous. We're in a good place right now, but I think For myself, I like to err on the side of caution. And I think that our accounting team feels the same way, that we don't know what the next year is going to bring, or the next political, we never know what's going to change in politics. So when times are good, we want to try to save as much as possible and be really lean. And that way, when times are not as good, then we have something to fall back on. So we've been being really mindful of spending.
In looking at these, particularly the comparatives, does it give any particular guidance for the moving to work changes that we're considering?
The only thing that will change will be, for the first few years, will be reallocation of duties. And so if we recertify every 3 years, which, our admin plan has been accepted by HUD. So we are beginning the process of figuring out, not figuring out, we know what we're going to do, but how we're going to go forward. That will, I think, I don't think it's going to change the tenant rental income drastically, but I do think it will change the amount of time our property management spends on recertifications, and will reallocate their time to being more able to meet resident or building needs, property needs, for sure.
Great.
Yep.
So
I will say our legal costs were pretty low. I mean, they were a little bit above budget, but they were pretty low considering. I'm a little nervous about legal costs going into next year, depending on, what we see for people who are not paying, who are not able to pay rent.
is this a question of ability, intent? Because we've talked about the Brattleboro Housing Partnership as the houser of last resort for people who don't have resources.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure. So every time someone leaves our housing for any reason, we document it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we have that data yet. I'm not sure. I can't speak to that. I will say that for people and maybe this is a broad assumption, but I think that when your income is low, 30% is a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think during this, having the VRAP program has really aided a lot of people in, living a more comfortable life without having to pay that amount. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just thinking that might be what it is. But again, that's just that's just a guess. So I think that once we see, as we continue to document people leaving our housing, then that will give us a better indication of what is going on.
As you talked about several legal cases for non-payment.
Mm-hmm.
And others for cause.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Other questions from commissioners? And we have the second tranche of financial papers, the monthly budget, consolidated BHP, which excludes N.W. Richards and the RCC and RCC2.
So this is just really the first, this is through May. So it's just the first 2 months. So we don't put one out. James, our accountant, doesn't do one for the first month because he says that it's just not really worth it at that point, but really May is the first time you should really start to look at the first quarter. So everything looks to be on target. There's nothing concerning. Everything seems to be right. I think, speaking of the last year, in the same line as that. Just to go back to your point, Janet, I think we are bringing in a lot more supportive services this year. So we're adding the SASH for All. We're adding an additional panel of SASH. We're adding we just hired someone new for the EEC position. We're looking to hire a part-time program person. So I think that once we have these more supportive services in place, my hope is that we'll have more housing retention and that we'll minimize some of these things. So I think, that's our plan, is to bring in more supports for our residents so that we don't have these legal issues.
That would be wonderful.
I hope so. That's our hope, for sure.
Any questions before we go to the checklisting? Okay. Green checklisting. Which then has attached, no, it doesn't have attached to it. The A.W. Richards financial statements. Checklisting.
So these are, these documents, these 3 documents are our audit. So they're on a different fiscal year, they're on the annual year. And so those 3 were completed. They were completed prior to last meeting, but we hadn't gotten the final version. And yeah, so this is the end of the year. And the good news is there was no findings, which is great.
Yeah.
So
I know when I have been in to sign checks, we have the ones for Zaluzny excavating sort of at the end because they are quite large.
Mhm.
But the work that's being done is quite large, so. And July, Commissioner Stookey, Byron, you're in the check signing assignments.
I would like August.
Okay,
I could do September.
great.
wonderful.
That's wonderful, because that will give me time to add the new commissioners to the bank accounts.
Great.
Thank you. And our bank is, and People's Bank is transferring to a new bank. So we're in the process of working with them through that transition. So all of our accounts will be changing as well.
Transferring to a new bank. Can you do?
People's Bank was bought by a new bank, and I can't remember the name of it now. It's T&M. I'd have to find out. I'll put it in the notes for you.
Yeah.
But we met with our bank representative for our accounts to just make sure that we have everything in place for the transition.
Will all the signature cards have to be redone?
No, they won't. And we won't actually even need to get new checks, which is good.
Good.
But there are some, the portal will change, and there's certain things, our credit cards will all change. So I think this might be a good opportunity when everything changes to have the boards reapprove all of the credit cards, because I think it's been some time since we've done that.
Sure.
So we'll do that.
Excellent.
I'm
Byron?
I just am behind on that one. Remind me what the change in our banks is?
People's United Bank is changing. They have been brought out by another bank. And let me really quickly. I can tell you. M&T.
I was gonna say MT, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. And I was just looking it up too.
M&T.
They're
If they're a
big.
consortium, are they out of Boston or?
It's a great question, Janet.
Can you interject? I think you're out of New York, because I had that bank, and
Ah,
M&T, and nothing, it's checks, everything comes the same. And I think they're out of Buffalo, New York.
Thank you.
I think.
So where are we at with savings and loan?
Well, we have one account with Brattleboro Savings and Loan, and we have one loan with Brattleboro Savings and Loan. We don't have that. One of our accounts is our laundry account. We bring all of our laundry money to Brattleboro Savings and Loan. And then we also have a loan for Red Clover Commons 2 through Brattleboro Savings and Loan. All of our other banking is through People's United. If that's something the board would like to explore, now that they're moving to M&T, that this would be a great time. I think that's something the board can explore, and I can certainly put it on the agenda.
No, I'm just wanting to get caught up.
So there are 3 financial statements for A.W. Richards, Red Clover Commons Limited, and RCC2 Limited Partnerships. Comments on these?
I don't have any questions.
Confess I didn't study them.
Excuse me, Barb. I didn't hear what you said.
I said, I confess I didn't study them.
I notice A.W. Richards just continues to be, what it is. It is what it is, right?
So we did meet with representatives from Ember North this past week, and some other, and one of the their consultants for the HVAC system there. We are doing some work around that to improve the HVAC system. There really needs to be a lot of work done. Our tax credit does expire in 2014. And so this is really the opportunity to just talk to the owner about what we can do next. We at this point, we can't put any money in reserves. There's no funding for reserves, because it's just not cash flowing. And so the owner is aware of that as well. They know that this isn't happening. It's something that our accountant is going to work with us to meet with them and try to figure out what to do next. My understanding is, and from all the research I have done in the 15 years since we've had that building, we have not ever cash flowed. We haven't been able to put money in replacement reserves. It's a different types of tax credit than what we have at RCC and RCC2. So RCC and RCC2 have project-based vouchers connected to every single unit.
Mm-hmm.
The tax credit A.W. Richards doesn't. So there are some market rate apartments. It's a different subsidy, and it just doesn't cash flow as well.
Well, I know that our accountant has been raising this for some time.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds as if the next board is going to have some opportunities as well as some challenges.
I think that it's a conversation we'll have to have with Evernorth. I think normally after this period, they may want us to take over the property. I think that would be something the board would need to decide. I think there's some bigger pieces that need to be addressed before we can go forward. And this is the opportunity to do it now that the tax credits will be expiring.
Good. And now down to projects in progress. The Melrose Terrace, no, I'm sorry, board business, the board orientation committee.
Well, at this point, we haven't been able to move forward because the select board hasn't come back with our questions answered. And when they do that, we can move forward. But our recommendation, I believe, Byron, correct me if I'm incorrect, and Christine, is that we encourage all applicants to meet with the chair, which I believe you have, Patricia. And
Patricia met with Christine.
Good.
I haven't had a chance to meet with her.
Okay.
But I
So-
would wait until we were with the select board.
So,
Right.
Yeah, to bring everyone up to speed, and I apologize because it's been a little clunky since we started this process. It came up very quickly, and so they pushed back the appointment by the select board until July. So that gave us a little bit of breathing room, and they asked us to set aside some times that Janet and I could meet with applicants prior to the select board appointment, but they would like us to meet at the municipal center. So I did send them times, and I think right now they're scheduling a time for us to meet with the 3 applicants. So far, we have 3 applicants for the 2 positions.
Right.
I have met with all of them. I met with two of them for a formal meeting, and one, we had a brief phone call, and we were going to reschedule a different time. And I explained that this would be an opportunity really for them to ask us questions and for us to tell them a lot about what the roles and responsibilities are. When Janet and I meet with them, we're not going to be deciding who is going to be on the board. We're just going to be giving information. The select board did say, though, that we could make a recommendation if we had a recommendation before the select board made the appointment. And then, so the select board will then interview the candidates and then make their decision.
Great.
So that's where things have landed. So we did make some progress. I think the hard part was that it happened more quickly than they realized, and we didn't get a response until we already started the process of meeting with people. I just started meeting with people before we got the response. So I was able to meet with two of the applicants.
I apologize for jumping in before you.
That's okay. It's not your fault, Liz. It's my fault that I didn't circle you back in. So I'm sorry.
That's fine.
Brattleboro Housing Opportunities, Inc.
Yeah, so Christine and I met with Lorelei, and we made a few edits to the, what do we want to call it? Christine, sorry.
You're right. The committee, the board member, the board member description and responsibilities.
So we made a few edits to that, and we would like to search for a resident representative first, and then we can then continue our search for other members, a total of 5 members, including, so 2 additional members, including the 3 that we will have at that point. So one is a resident representative, one is a commissioner representative, and one is a staff representative, and then 2 others. So Christine, you did get the insurance approved.
Mm-hmm.
So that's all set. That was one thing we were waiting on. So that was good news. And one of the first projects we're going to be working on is the Ledgewood playground, looking for grants to support a new playground set for the Ledgewood family site.
Wonderful.
Or where?
At Ledgewood Heights.
Uh-huh.
And again, the reason for this Brattleboro Housing Opportunity, Inc. is that it's a nonprofit, can receive donations, which will be tax deductible to their donors.
Correct. And we will be reporting directly to this board here, but looking for grants and being able to write those grants.
Great.
And I also have added Jeanette White as one of her projects right now. She's just looking through the bylaws just to make sure that everything is up, is exactly the way we need it to be, or how it's all aligned, because the argument, it actually goes back quite a while, and some of the notes were from years ago. And so we're just trying to make sure that we have everything in place so that we know how to move forward, or if there was anything that needed to be changed, this is the time to do it.
Yes, indeed. And then projects in progress. Melrose Terrace flood mitigation. I think it's the construction observation reports.
So I think you'll agree that these are beautifully done. I do not do these. These come from Jessica, who's the engineer of the project, and she does an amazing job. So you can really see some of the work that's been done in the pictures, which is really really exciting.
Yes.
They've come a long way, and so we will be. They're hoping to complete the majority of the work by the end of July. And the plantings will continue. They might need to just do additional plantings next spring. We can't get all of the plantings in, but other than that, it will be primarily done, and we will have some sort of a celebration to just commemorate that. And we've already have groups from conservation groups that want to plan field trips here. So we're trying to figure that out, but there's a lot of interest for sure. And so for right now, we're just trying to make sure that the plantings get done and that they finish the last piece of the work, which is really moving all the ground to make sure that it's in place to where it needs to be, because it was all removed and now it's going back.
Mhm. And I know that West Brattleboro had really invested in what was going to happen here. Have they been in touch, the West Brattleboro group or planning or whatever?
We haven't really been in touch with them as much. And I think that's a great point, Jeanette. I think that we'll put that on our list. We are applying for a planning grant for what to do next for this through VHCB. And that will be part of that process. We'll be engaging that group to see what they want to see at the site as well.
Great. That's the development planning application, which was the next topic.
Yep.
SASH for all.
I just had a question on the last one.
Sure.
So just curious about how many days was the road cut, like shut off, due to the road construction on this project?
Was it George Miller Drive?
Yeah,
That one you're talking about? I think that was only closed for 3 days.
that's great.
And we put a light on the other at Melrose. There was another project at Melrose that closed Melrose, but that wasn't related to this project. That was related to a drain in the road that was a town project. So that was closed for a few days, but that wasn't a part of this. That was the top of Melrose Street. But George Miller Drive was only closed for 3 days. We only had that light on Melrose for 3 days, which was great. Although I'll tell you, I would have liked a light. I'd like a permanent light there. It was so great getting out. It made life very easy.
Have they now connected George Miller Drive so you can drive in, cross the bridge, and then go up to the office directly?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
I remember when I left the office and you said you can get to it, and it didn't look very complete. So I had to go around.
It looks much better, Janet now, for sure.
Wonderful. We are finished our agenda. Any comments? One of the things in one of the meetings that I have been part of over the years is an opportunity to comment on how the meeting went for individuals who were participating in it. And since this is my last formal meeting, I want to say how much it is meant to me to have Christine's assistance in proposing an agenda, having all of the materials ready so that we can go through them, and how much I appreciate all of the participation of the commissioners. It really makes this board one that is both fun and meaningful.
We appreciate you,
So much.
and we will sorely miss you.
It's going to be exciting times for you all.
You have been an ideal chair.
Yes.
Well, I was inviting just what's your experience? And Donna, this is your last meeting too.
Yeah, don't make me cry.
Well, we're going to be celebrating on the 1st at Hayes Court.
Yeah.
We'll be outside. We'll be, probably can't eat ice cream and keep masked. So we'll be outside and it'll be safe.
Yeah.
We'll have treats of some sort for sure, depending on the weather. We're hoping to have some ice cream, but it's going to be warm, so we're trying to make it so that it.
Right.
But we'll have something nice. It'll be outside at Hayes Court behind the community room. There's a nice space back there. We'll have some balloons and signs up to point people in the right direction. But I wanted to just say thank you so much, and I'm sure I'll say this again this week. But I wanted to say thank you so much to the board. So when I became the executive director in 2020, I was really excited, but also really nervous. And I never could have imagined the challenges that we would have faced. It just, if I had known that, I don't think I would have taken the if someone told me there was a global pandemic coming down the road in about a month and a half. But I will say that this board has just been such a stable rock for me. They have really helped to guide, we have looked at some really difficult situations for residents, for building sites, financial, staff wise, and you have been just a very stable board that just is so pleasantly moderate, really looking at all the different lenses from different perspectives. And I think that has just been really such a gift in a time that has been so turbulent. And I really appreciate the calmness of your leadership. It really is contagious. So thank you.
You're most welcome. Most welcome. And Donna, we will absolutely miss you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes,
Appreciate that.
been a very wonderful participant and very important part of this board.
And I'm looking forward to hearing good things without responsibility, but with much interest. May I hear a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
Thank you.
A second?
Thank you, Liz. All those in favor of adjourning?
Hi.
Aye.
All those opposed? And what a privilege it is to work with such wonderful people. Thank you.
Thank you.
I want to say.